Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is David and I talk about books. Before I get started, I just want to say that this whole setup is different to me. I'm usually holding my phone up to my face while I record my videos, but it was suggested to me that I do it like this because it will look like that I'm looking at you, and it will make you feel less queasy if I'm not shaking the camera about, and I don't know. It's just a way for me to improve my channel or improve my content. I'm still doing my videos in one long continuous shot without any cuts or edits. Maybe next year I will think about editing my videos, but right now I'm more comfortable about doing it like this. So the book I'm going to be talking about, because I'm actually reading all of Stephen King's work in order. And I've actually read 39 books by him. I'm actually on my 40th book by King, which is The Dark Half, which I'm extremely loving so much. I really like this book so far. But the book I'm going to be reading right now, actually talking about right now, is the Tommyknockers. And this is not regarded highly amongst King fans, and I knew that going in. I knew that, and I also knew that Stephen King was high as a kite when he wrote this, because in his early career he was very addicted to drugs and alcohol, and you could tell that he wasn't in his brain wasn't in full King mode when he wrote this. It's extremely wordy. It's very long. It's 979 pages. Is this copy? It could have easily been done by 600 pages, maybe 700 pages, and still been better, But some parts of this book I liked, some parts of it I didn't. I don't actually hate this book. I thought it was a kind of a middle of the road novel. It was kind of an average read from King. Stephen King also actually referred to this book as an awful book, which he talked about in an interview with the Rolling Stones magazine, which the number of that issue, if you're interested, is the issue number is 1221, which was published on the 6th of November 2014. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. And this book was published in on the 10th of November 1987. There is a mini-series based on this, which I might have watched many years ago, but I watched it so long ago I pretty much forgot all about it. Only little bits and pieces or little scenes here and there, like a unfinished jigsaw puzzle. So after I read this book, I thought, okay, I'll watch the mini-series, which is on. I was actually going to say Netflix, but it's on YouTube right now. It's 3 hours long, and it's set up into 2 individual parts. The mini-series is a lot focused than the book. It does change the ending a little bit as well, to make it more appealing to the mass audience. But overall, it's more concise. It isn't perfect. It does drag a lot, but it's a better experience. So this, as I said, so the miniseries was the miniseries was released on the 9th to the 10th of May in 1993, and also Stephen King actually said that he got the inspiration to write the Tommyknockers by reading one of these books by H.P. Lovecraft called The Color Out of Space, which is which I've seen it. It's a very trippy sci-fi movie, and reading this, because I didn't know that fact, but reading this, I was thinking, okay, this is giving me some of the film's vibes, So before I get started, I just want to say that this is my own thoughts and feelings towards this book. As always, if your thoughts and feelings are different than mine, that is fine. You're entitled to have your own opinions. Also, this is going to be a spoiler-free video on this. So, because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, I want you to go in there fresh. Also, I've only read this book once, so if I completely missed the point of a whole term or concept or character or whatever, apologies for that. As I said, I've only read this once, so if I missed a point of something, please let me know in the comments down below. So yeah, so as I said, this is a sci-fi book. Stephen King is kind of well known, or more well known to write horror, but this is a sci-fi book. Okay, fair enough. It does have horror elements scattered throughout it, but it's more of a sci-fi book, but with elements of horror scattered throughout it, but I mean sort of, but not really. So it starts off with introducing us to our main leading lady, called Roberta Anderson, who is called Bobby throughout the whole book. Bobby is a novelist. She writes Western novels, but it's not really a big part of the novel or something that you really need to remember. Or a fact that you need to remember. Bobby is out in the woods behind her house, walking her dog, Peter. And one day, while doing this, she trips over a mysterious metal object in the ground, and she goes up to it to investigate it, and she thinks that it's maybe a car in the, that's actually buried, or she doesn't know. So she goes up and interacts with it. She gets a strange vibration from it, and since then she becomes infatuated and obsessed with this object and digging this object up. She becomes extremely paranoid and protective over it. She doesn't let hardly anyone go near it or interact with it. She keeps it pretty much a secret for herself. As the story progresses, we find out about our second main character, called Jim Gardner, or James Gardner, who is referred to as Gard throughout the novel. His surname is Gardner, but it's shortened down to Gard. Gard is a poet, and he is an alcoholic. He's on a downward spiral of his life, and he basically his life isn't too great. It's implied that Bobby and Gard had kind of a thing or a relationship with each other, in the past. And one day, while Gard is drinking and doing what he's doing, he gets a kind of a intuition or a sense that Bobby is in trouble and that Bobby needs his help. It's not implied in the novel that that Gard has the shine or the shining, but that's the impression that it gives me, and I still believe that Gard has a bit of the shining in him. When he gets this feeling, he goes to the town of Haven, which the book is actually set in. This is set in the town called Haven, which is, fun fact, is actually very close to Derry, the town of that, the town that it resides, or Pennywise. Derry is actually 20 miles away from away from Haven, and Derry is actually mentioned a lot in this novel. It's mentioned about 200 times, and I'm not joking. It is ridiculous about how many times it's actually referred to in this novel. As the story progresses, we find out a lot about the town, and people in the town are kind of acting a bit weird, as the kind of energy from the ship is actually sending out, I don't know, all these kind of like strange energy throughout the whole town, and all the residents of this town are becoming more intelligent than they already are, and they are kind of losing their teeth a lot, and they are becoming to be able to, and they have the ability to hear other people's thoughts. This element is called, what's the book refers to as the becoming, and basically what the becoming is these humans, or the residents of Haven, are slowly turning into aliens themselves, or the closest form of the aliens, or the Tommyknockers, as what a human can actually be transformed into, if that makes sense. As I said, this book is extremely complex to understand, and very, very, it does drag a lot. when Guard gets into Haven, he goes up to Bobby, and Bobby shows Guard this mysterious object, in the ground, and they both begin to dig it up. Guard becomes very he doesn't change at all. He doesn't his teeth doesn't fall out, and no one in the town can read his mind because of this plate in his head. And as the story progresses, we find out that Bobby and Guard go into the Tommyknocker ship, and they find all these aliens, and it's very, very strange. I mean, it's very enjoyable at the beginning. I mean, not beginning, at the end. But this book is actually split up into 3 parts as well, called the ship in the earth, and then it has the section in the middle where it talks about the residents of the town, and then at the begin and then at the end, the 3rd part, which is the main Tommyknocker part, where they go into the actual ship. So the beginning part, or book 1, is where they kind of discover the ship and they kind of dig it up. The second part of the novel, or the second book rather, or section of the novel, is focused more on the residents of the novel. Of this town of Haven. And the end is basically how they get into the ship. And also throughout this book, they find out that there is a mysterious planet called Altair 4, which I'm not entirely sure what Altair 4 is. I actually know it's a planet, but they refer to it as a kind of storage area. It's actually not brought up a lot in the book, but it's hardly ever brought up in the mini-series. But it's very kind of complex to understand. And also Haven and Derry are actually set in the real world. They actually say that Haven is very near Maine, or is actually part of Maine. So that's really interesting. An interesting fact that Stephen King kind of put his fictional towns of Haven and Derry in the real world next to his hometown of Maine. So yeah, that's pretty much what the story is about. So what I liked about this novel, I liked the characters. I like Guard. He is actually very destructive in his behaviour. And I liked aspects of the residents when they're talking about it, and I like the aspects of the alien ship at the end. It's very cool. But it does drag on a lot, and that's one of my main dislikes about the novel, is that it is very, very wordy. This will take you a long time to read, and it does drag a lot in places, and it doesn't really get to the point, or it actually takes a long time to get to the point. I wouldn't really say that I didn't really feel invested about the characters, but I didn't really care. But I don't really care about many of the characters at all. I strongly think that I will enjoy this a bit better or a bit more on a reread. But I'm going to read this, but it's going to be a long time before I read this again. Trust me. So this has loads of connections to Stephen King's multiverse, or other worlds, because he references his novels in. Other novels and characters and places within his work, and this is packed with it. As I said, this refers to Derry numerous times. It probably has the word Derry in this about over 200 times, and I kid you not. So the novels that it refers to in this book is It, 11/22/63, which it talks about the assassination of JFK, but only slightly. Firestarter, The Dead Zone, Pet Sematary, and as I said, it does touch on The Shining, or maybe God has a bit of The Shining to him, but that's my own personal connection to it. It does have a few pop culture references in this as well. It does actually talk about Jack Nicholson's performance in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which it has a kind of a little paragraph in it, which I thought, okay, that's kind of a cool thing to have, you know. Also, it does actually talk about Peter Straub's book, Floating Dragon, which, if you didn't know, Peter Straub and Stephen King done some novels together called The Talisman and Black House. I've read The Talisman already, but I want to read Black House, not watch Black House. So I thought, okay, that was a kind of a cool thing to actually have. The connections to it has. It talks about the asylum that Henry Bowers is in. Henry is actually residing in. It talks about numerous companies and areas within Derry, the fictional town of Derry. When I was doing my notes, I kind of stopped at some point because I was thinking, okay, this is gonna have so many references to Derry. Maybe when I reread this, I will do a whole notes on the references of Derry, but I kind of stopped after a while. But the businesses that it talks about is the Derry Home Hospital and the Dead River Gas Company. And it does talk about a lot about the lumbering industry in Derry. Because as I said, Derry and Haven are very close together. They're only 20 miles away from each other. And it does say that residents of Haven do go off to Derry and live and work there. So Derry and Haven are very, very close together. And it does mention Pennywise in this book. On 2 occasions, it mentions him where one of the characters is in I think in a hotel room or a motel room or whatever, and he hears kind of a laughter or a chuckle coming from the sink in the bathroom. Also, one of the other scenes, he sees Pennywise in a open manhole cover when he's walking. I don't know if it's the same character. I'm pretty sure it is. And he's walking down the street and he sees Pennywise in a open manhole cover, one probably circular round ones, and he's looking up at him, smiling, holding a like a handful of balloons. I'm pretty sure Pennywise doesn't say anything to this character, but he does acknowledge that he's there and he can see him. It's very interesting as well because I don't know whether that happens after the events of It, the novel of It, where the losers kind of kill Pennywise. But it'd be interesting. Let me know in the comments down below if the events in this book happened after the events of It, because that's really good. Because I strongly believe that it's after the losers killed Pennywise, that Pennywise can't be killed because he's immortal, and he kind of came back, you know. So that's the references to It that this novel has. The references to Firestarter, it references the shop on several occasions, maybe 2 or 3 times it mentions the shop. Also, it mentions, at the end of the book, at the very end, it mentions the events that Charlie, the little girl that can start fires with her mind, about how she kind of like set fires in this mysterious agency of the shop. And it does actually say that after the events of this book, some of the residents of the town were taken to this mysterious agency called the shop and experimented on and examined and monitored until they all died. So yeah, that's a kind of interesting thing to have in the book. Also, it does, and so that's the references to Firestarter. References to the Dead Zone. It mentions how a man called John Smith, who is the main character in the Dead Zone, how he attempted to assassinate Greg Stilson. So that's really interesting to actually have that kind of connection in this novel. And finally, the last book that this novel references in the King universe is Pet Sematary, and it talks about the Micmac Indians. Now, the forest or the woods that the ship is found in I don't know if this is the case, but I strongly believe that this is the same forest that the Micmac Indians inhabited, and that this forest must be near the actual pet cemetery or the Micmac Indian burial ground that brings people back to life, or people or animals back to life. Also, it does actually mention the town of Ludlow, which is the town that the Creeds reside in the Pet Sematary novel. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So yeah, closing thoughts of the book. If you want to read the Tommyknockers, please know that it's going to be a very long, slow read. It's going to take you a long time to read it, especially if you're, I mean, despite if you're a fast reader or not, it's going to take you a while to get through this. And it does drag a lot in places, so be warned about that. I would recommend that you maybe watch the mini-series on YouTube or wherever before you go into this, just so you know the basic storyline of this novel. But anyone can actually read this, like young Stephen King fans, or anyone can read this. It's not really offensive, but it is incredibly slow. So rating of this, I am going to be incredibly harsh. I am going to rate this 2.5 stars out of 5. And I mean, also, just so you're interested, or if you're interested, I am going to give a rating to the miniseries, which is a 3.5 stars for the miniseries. But I believe that if I would give this a reread, it will probably go up to 3 stars. But right now it's 2.5. So yeah, that's my that's my review on the Tommyknockers. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry it's been a bit long. I do want to give a quick shout out to one of my subscribers, and a kind of a booktuber who I'm really enjoy actually watching. Her actually channel is called BookCatwithGlasses, and it's all one word. So if you search it in YouTube, make sure you don't do it with any spaces, just do it in one continuous thing. She does fantastic content. She does it in a more of a animated way, kind of an animated cat type of thing. But it's really entertaining, and her personality does shine throughout it. And I am completely shocked every time I actually look at her channel that she currently has 13 subscribers. So please do check out her video. She does really good content, and yeah, I think she's good. I mean, I praise her every single time I comment on her videos, so please check out her channel. So yeah, so as I said, my next video is, my next book that I'm going to be reading is The Dark Half, which I'm looking forward to reading this. I'll actually, reading this and talking about this. And yeah, I'm actually really liking this book so far. So like, comment and subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments, yeah, please make them, nice ones. And stay safe, stay healthy, and keep reading. And also let me know about what you think of this whole kind of setup I've got here. So yeah, I'll see you later, guys. Have a great day. Bye.